Hi everyone, my name is Vicky and I'm 14 years old. I just finished grade 9 and I'm going into grade 10 and I go to People's Christian Academy. I won the Honorable Mention Award for the Scholastic Writing Competition. I submitted a story about a couple of months ago. I think it was last year around like Christmas time, I think. And just last week, around the last 2 weeks, I got the award back and I got an honorable mention award for my short narrative. My short narrative is called I Will Be Your Friend, and it's a story about two elementary schoolers who one is quite popular in the class and is eager to make new friends. The other one is not so popular, is more quiet and prefers to stay in their own zone. But one day, the extroverted one decides to befriend the introverted one because they see that she's feeling a little bit lonely and she wants to make friends with her. And eventually the two girls become friends. This story is loosely based on back when I was in elementary school and I was a little bit more on the introverted side. It doesn't take a lot of inspiration from my personal experience. I just wanted to think of a story that fit the sort of narrative I was trying to go for because it was originally actually an assignment for a writing class. Basically, we were supposed to write a short narrative about a person changing another person's life, or basically a big change that happened. I've been learning at iCALC since I was in grade 3, and I think that learning at iCALC has just really helped me a lot because people at iCALC are pretty helpful. There's a lot of like good teachers here, and I think that what I really like about iCALC is the classes are not too big. It's like the biggest class I've been in, it's like maybe 10-ish people. I feel like in an environment where there's just like less people and just like it's more focused rather than like a full school class, I feel like there's more things to talk about, more insightful thoughts to hear about. And I feel like the less the people, the more chance I get to express myself. Because with more people, I figured I don't really have the chance to do that. And overall, I think that iCALC is just a great point for me to start learning more about things. And at iCALC, I haven't just learned writing or English, I've also learned math. I've also learned a little bit of computer technology, like coding, which I think was back in 2021 when I was in middle school. And now I think I've just mostly focused on writing because I feel like writing is the area where I feel like I'm the most strong in, and I just want to like keep learning that in the future. My biggest gain from iCALC is I've learned a lot of like really helpful things that I haven't usually learned in school yet. I've taken a lot of like advanced writing lessons that are more advanced than my grade level. In grade 5, I took I think a grade 8 or a grade 9 course, and I'm now in grade 9. I'm taking like a more high school advanced, maybe even grade 11 and 12 course. And I think it's really like a big step up for me to just learn a little bit, something a little bit more advanced than what I've been learning in school. And a lot of the things I've learned in iCALC are things that, oh wow, I find this really interesting. Especially when it comes to like short stories. I've read a lot of really interesting short stories that I don't think I would have ever read in school or I have ever like heard of before. And I think that a lot of short stories have really interesting narrative that really inspires me to write a short story of my own that has, you know, an equally interesting narrative. So yeah, I feel like one of the biggest things iCALC English classes have helped me in is just like exposing me to a lot of other media that I could use to inspire my own. I would definitely consider pursuing writing in the future because I feel like writing has been my strongest suit in basically all subjects. I've done really well in English exams and writings and assignments. So I think writing is definitely something I would consider pursuing in the future. At what type of writing, I'm not 100% sure yet. I could do like all sorts of writing, but I feel like I'm leaning more towards creative writing, like as in writing stories or books or like novels maybe, or like series. I'm not really 100% sure yet, but I think definitely more in the creative writing field. And also, I don't think I'm just going to pursue like writing. I also might pursue art, as in visual art, because like lately I've also been a fan of drawing or like coloring or like forms of visual art. And I think that if I incorporated the two together, like for example, drawing graphic novels or like drawing comics, I think that would be a good chance to put both drawing and writing and combine it into one. So yeah, I think I would definitely consider writing in the future. It's pretty much my number one career choice right now, but I'm not 100% sure yet because like as you know, I'm still growing. I'm still yet to go to like the higher grades. And I think by the time I'm like a little bit older, I still may need to completely gather what kind of things I really like and what field I'm 100% going to pursue in the future. To be honest, I'm not really sure because a lot of the books I read like are from all different kinds of writers. I don't read one specific writer like all of their books. Like I feel like when it comes to writers, I jump from writer to writer. There's not really a specific style of writing that I prefer over a lot of others because when I read, it's mostly for the plot and not the style of writing. When I was a child, ever since I was in grade 2 or even grade 1, I've always liked writing stories. And when I wrote stories, I would do this thing where I would take a piece of printer paper and fold it in half like a card. And I would write on it as if it were an actual book. Like I would draw a cover on the front. And then I would write all the text inside. And then if I didn't have space to fit it all, I would fold another piece of paper into a card and glue it next to the other one. So it would be like an actual sort of book without the need to print it. And then I would just like write as much as I can on the inside and just, create these mini books. I still don't exactly know if I still have any of those, but my mom has a lot of photos of them. I once really liked writing about animals. I don't exactly know where the obsession came from about writing about magical power-based animals, but I think like for people my age back then, it was a collective phase. A lot of my books centered around magic. Like I'm pretty sure 90% of my stories that I wrote back in the day, like they all had something to do with magical powers. Right now, I think I've gone a little bit more into the realistic type of writing. Like not all of my books are like magic power based anymore. But yeah, just for a little brief summary on how writing was back for me. I read a lot of Harry Potter books back then, so I guess that's where I got the inspiration. And yeah, so I'd say I have a pretty long history of writing, and I would hope to continue pursuing that in the future and maybe write more stories. Most of the time I read books and I search for basically not just books, but like any kind of plot-based narratives that I can find, just any type, whether it be just like a regular book, maybe one I read as a kid or one I'm currently reading, or I can even take inspiration from online descriptions. So when I go online, I usually like consume a lot of media online, and I often, a lot of the times, I take inspiration from media plot, maybe even more than book plots, because I find that media is like really interesting. Online media like shows, games, that kind of stuff. A lot of their plots just like are really interesting. I get a better understanding of the characters rather than in a book. So when I'm looking for inspiration, especially when it comes to character writing or plot writing, I always try and picture it in my head before going out with the writing. I feel like it helps me a lot more if I know what the thing I'm writing about looks like rather than just typing it out. And on average, maybe if I sat at a computer and just typed nonstop, maybe 2 hours, 3 if it takes more, because it takes a lot of time for me to adjust and I'm a perfectionist. So I need to make sure that every word is worded perfectly and that everything makes sense, or else I won't be satisfied. But if I already have a story in my head and I have all the energy and motivation to write it down, then maybe 1 hour-ish. When it comes to English, you don't have to memorize. You just have to know what you're gonna write. Like, there isn't a lot of like facts. It's more of whatever comes to your head, just write it down. If you're like an aspiring creative writer, read a lot. It can be anything, like what I mentioned before. Read books, read online media, consume online media, watch shows, basically anything that has a plot to it. And then you'll be able to get a lot of inspiration from A, how the characters are designed, B, how the plot is constructed. Another thing you can do is just take a lot of English classes, because they definitely help. You get to listen to a lot of stories that you've probably never heard before. And rather than like finding stories on your own, you get to be exposed to stories that are all kinds of genres, like can be fiction, nonfiction, essays, poetry, all kinds of things. And so I feel like going to a class where you can like experience all sorts of different writing forms is just a really good way to learn more things. So I feel like receiving an honorable mention, I'm already pretty proud of myself for getting some sort of award. I usually pick out best stories I write and enter them in competitions. And I think just pick whichever story you think you're the most proud of if you write a lot of stories consistently. If you feel proud of what you've written and you entered it in competition, that means you're proud of it. Like you're proud of what you did. That is already enough to, prove that you're really confident about your writing and you're hoping that your writing will be able to gain an award. That's already really good.